and Messi's magic that has now set up a dream World Cup final against Spain. So, from India's E20 debate to a high-stakes temple case in the United Kingdom, and from Lionel Messi's latest masterpiece to a blockbuster World Cup final, we've got a packed show lined up for you. You're watching In Your Interest with me, Kabir Naqvi. First, the top headlines on News9. A stampede-like situation reported during the Jagannath Rath Yatra in Puri. A devotee has died of suffocation, at least 100 others injured, many of them hospitalized. Charanjit Singh Tanni softens his stance after meeting with KC Venugopal, says all is well within the Congress party and will stand by the leadership's decision. The CRPF strengthens security in Manipur with 100 bulletproof vehicles in the wake of recent tensions in Stenapati district and the targeting of an Assam Rifles camp in that very town. No end to Mamata Banerjee's woes as another Trinamool Congress member of Parliament, Koyal Malik, resigns from her Rajya Sabha seat. Well, tonight on In Your Interest, we begin with a case that could have consequences far beyond one customer or just one car, and far beyond one car maker. See, take a look at this. For months now, the E20 debate, the debate over the fuel, has divided opinion. The government says ethanol-blended petrol is India's green fuel future. It cuts crude oil imports, reduces emissions, boosts farmer incomes, and improves energy security. But motorists, on the other hand, have continued to ask difficult questions. Will my mileage suffer? Is my engine really E20 compatible? And if something goes wrong, who is going to be responsible? And tonight, for perhaps the first time, we have a consumer court that has attempted to answer at least one of those questions. The Consumer Forum in Raipur has ruled in favor of a vehicle owner whose SUV allegedly suffered repeated breakdowns after being fueled with ethanol-blended petrol. The court didn't merely award compensation. It directed the manufacturer to either replace the vehicle with an E20 compatible model within 45 days' time or refund more than 20 lakh rupees along with compensation for mental harassment. Now, let's make one thing clear. This is a consumer forum order. It can be challenged before a higher forum or court. And the car maker has decided that it is going to do that. It is going to compensate the customer, but there are key details, the car maker says, that weren't taken into account. It's not the final word in law, but it for sure is significant to say the least, because it raises questions that millions of motorists may now begin asking. If a consumer can successfully argue that a vehicle sold to him wasn't adequately compatible with commercially available E20 fuel, will other consumers now knock on the doors of the consumer courts? Will automobile manufacturers now have to be far more transparent about E20 compatibility? And should buyers be clearly told at the time of purchase what fuel their vehicle is designed to run on? And perhaps the biggest question, at a time when E20 has become the default petrol at most fuel stations across India, how does an ordinary consumer know whether their vehicle is truly E20 ready before it's already too late? Because this debate is no longer just about fuel policy. It's becoming a debate about consumer rights, manufacturer accountability, and informed choice. So tonight, we've got two credible voices, and we ask, has the Raipur verdict changed the rules of the game, or is this simply one isolated consumer dispute that shouldn't be read as a wider indictment of E20? Joining me tonight are two of India's most respected voices. Take a look at this. We've got Rohit Iyer. You better know him by Rohit Iyer Explains on Instagram. He's an automotive content creator. And Professor Bijon Misra, consumer policy expert. Many thanks, gentlemen, for taking out the time. Rohit, let's get the snowball rolling here first and foremost. What do you make of this entire, consumer court battle that played out? Has the verdict finally and fundamentally changed this E20 debate? Because it seems like Maruti Suzuki has come out with their own statement. They say there were several key details that were left out. Our car was absolutely compliant with the E20 engine. But then again, a lot of other motorists out there, they're quite happy with this consumer forum in Raipur finally taking some action.
You know what? It's a very, very interesting thing that has happened. And for me, this entire movement that we're currently having with a lot of people raising questions about E20, whether we have the choice, whether it's good or not, I somehow see this like a sort of a movement. And when you consider this entire thing where consumers are coming up, raising their voices about getting a choice, when you think about it like a movement, right?
Yes. Yeah.
This consumer court forum, the decision that they have made, it's a part of that movement towards a time that might be beneficial for end consumers like you and I and the choice that we get in the car. Now, I'm no technical expert, so I'm not going to be diving into the fact whether ethanol is genuinely going to be very, very bad for engines. But because of this Maruti Suzuki case that has come up,
Yeah.
we're actually going to learn about quite a few things, particularly about fuel contamination. And I feel that it's very good that this consumer court forum has made a decision in favor of the consumers, have offered the person either a complete refund in the car or getting a brand new E20 car. Because see, even in the case of this Maruti, I was trying to do my research, trying to figure out why this person faced problems with their cars. Let's give the benefit of the doubt to the government over here. I'm not saying we should give the benefit of the doubt to the government, but let's say that we give them the benefit of the doubt.
Understood.
Let's say that ethanol is not the reason why this Maruti Suzuki Grand Vitara faced problems. But I'll tell you what the problem is. Now, the way that petrol mixes with water or ethanol mixes with water are two completely different things. When petrol and water come together, let's say there's some water contamination in a fuel tank. Let's say a fuel station, there's water contamination, and this is very probable in India, by the way. It's very, very tough to make sure that the infrastructure of all petrol pumps across India maintain a particular standard. This type of infrastructure, unfortunately, was not created before the entire ethanol E20 push was made. Now, there's a huge problem of storage, how petrol is stored, and how water can actually seep into these fuel storage tanks as well.
Yeah.
The way that normal petrol, which is completely free of ethanol, the way that it reacts with water versus how ethanol-based fuel, E20, reacts with water is completely different. Now, when we're considering about pure 100% petrol, it's inside a fuel storage tank within a gas station. Let's say that water comes in high amounts of quantities, and there is a proper mixing that has happened because of the water and the fuel coming together. Now, what usually happens with 100% petrol is that the petrol and the ethanol, they form two completely different layers, and it becomes very easy for a gas station to catch that there has been some water adulteration, and they can deal with it. But now what happens is when ethanol is brought into the picture, now ethanol is actually very water absorbing.
Yeah.
So the moment water enters those fuel tanks, ethanol reacts to the water, starts binding to it, and forms a completely different unit and forms a completely different liquid at the bottom of that fuel storage tank. Now, what happens is, usually when you're thinking about ethanol, now when ethanol and water mix together, it becomes very tough to identify that this is purely water because the ethanol starts separating from that E20 fuel and creates a completely much larger layer at the bottom of the fuel tank. Whenever we go to fill fuel, you put the nozzle into the car. The fuel that is coming from that fuel storage usually comes from the bottom of the storage tank. When the case is there of ethanol mixed fuel, when ethanol and water mix together, the total portion of that fuel storage tank, which has the ethanol plus water mix, it becomes extremely larger than when water is alone there in the case of pure fuel. So a lot of the fuel that we're getting into the car is actually less petrol in the case of water contamination, and it's a larger mix of ethanol plus water. Now, whether it's even an E20 compliant car, if you're going to be getting an end product that's entering your car, which is more ethanol, which is more water than fuel, of course problems are going to start coming. And of course,
And
mileage
the
is going
bigger
to start
question
dropping.
then will be who starts paying or coughing up money for those problems that they didn't even sign up for in the first place. So that's another question.
Exactly. Exactly. And us as consumers, now this was a very good hearing that the Consumer Court even mentioned
Yeah.
to Maruti Suzuki in this case. That see, we can't expect that common consumers are going to be checking the quality of
The
each and
Consumer
every
Court
time
verdict,
they refill
let me
fuel.
read out those points, that they're being flashed on our screens as well. The company failed to prove whether the vehicle was E20 compatible. It ordered the manufacturer to replace this SUV with E20 compatible model in about 45 days' time, or refund 20.5 lakh rupees, including the RTO and the insurance, 1 lakh rupees compensation for mental harassment over here as well. And it's about 5-6 times that the car actually broke down, it's stalled. So who pays all of that money? Professor Misra, what do you make of this? You buy an E20 compatible car, quote unquote, and then you put ethanol blended fuel in it. It starts stalling. You take it to the service center multiple times, and the mental harassment that comes with it. This is one lucky customer. Do you think this is going to turn into a legal trend? This is a legal precedent that has now been set up. And we're also flashing Maruti Suzuki's latest statement. They say, we will replace the car, but we will also challenge this order, in accordance with the law at a higher forum.
Yeah, so Kabir, when this law came into force in 1986, it gave 6 fundamental rights to the consumers. The most important fundamental right is right to information, you see, and the right to safety. The point, Raipur, I think Raipur, you said, no?
Yeah,
Raipur,
Raipur Consumer Forum.
Yeah, Raipur District Consumer Dispute Redressal Commission. We don't call it as a court, we call it as a commission. Now, the district commission gave a perfect verdict. I mean, firstly, though, I want to congratulate TV9 for getting into this conversation in details for the last 1 month. You all have been following it up in a very rigorous manner, which is actually educating and building awareness within your viewers and citizens. So it's a great work. Congratulations, TV9, for doing that. Number one, you see, the verdict has very clearly mentioned that you have to educate the consumer before you sell any product, and educate the consumer what kind of fuel to use, how to use, vagera, vagera. Now, the point is, as the court has already recognized, that it is not possible for the consumer to understand whether the fuel which is getting injected into the tank is of pure, high quality, as per standard fuel which is required for that vehicle. He is only told to take a petrol out of, and E20 has been made now almost mandatory within the supply chain.
Yeah.
But thanks for your vigorous campaign that the government has stalled it now, and they're not making it mandatory. They're going to still continue with the choice to the consumer. So that's a very big...
But that choice comes with a price tag, no, Professor? It's either E20, ethanol blended fuel, or you cough up 170, 160 rupees liter for XP100 or for, your fine-tuned regular petrol.
So that is why we need choice. We need to understand, and as the the automobile company has very rightly said that they're going to replace it and give them a E20 compliant vehicle within 45 days. So we need to understand that. Otherwise, they'll have to offer up the full refund with compensation, vagera, vagera, which they are not, I think, not willing to do that. They want to replace the vehicle and give a E20 compliant vehicle. So that is a good move. And I definitely also want the manufacturer to go for appeal to the State Commission and maybe subsequently to the Supreme Court to get a verdict on what are the rights of the consumers in these kind of cases. Because at the end of the day, the consumer needs to be compensated for any kind of a deliberate act of negligence.
And it's quite weird, Professor, because, you can help the viewers understand here. In this, the act that you were highlighting, in this entire legal hearing and the entire legal battle, once the order is out, it's funny that Maruti Suzuki is coming out with their statement now. When the actual battle was going on, where was Maruti Suzuki with all of these statements?
That's why we have a law. You see, the point is that is why we have India is one of the leading countries in the world to have a good consumer protection law existing in this country. However, I again want to congratulate the district commission for giving an early hearing and early order, because that would help, because otherwise most of the district commissions are having long pendency of cases. We are not getting prompt redressal. But in this case, that prompt redressal which has been provided, I think it's a great move, and it's a kind of a shot in the arm of the consumer in our country. So I'm very hopeful that now the consumer's voice will be heard by the other automobile companies. They would make sure that they don't commit such errors. They make sure that they make the consumer aware about the features of the vehicle, what kind of a fuel is required. And of course, the government is liable, the oil companies are liable to ensure that
Maruti Suzuki, Professor, also says that the manual, and Rohit, I mean, take a look at this. Maruti Suzuki, the car manufacturer, says it in their manual quite clearly that, you see, our manual says that this was an E20 compliant car. And that white jelly-like fluid that was, found and recovered from not just the fuel tank, but the fuel delivery system as well. It boils down to whether the malfunction happened in the part, because that's when the warranty comes into play, or did the malfunction occur because of the E20 that was put inside the car? And that's the big question, because for the average car owner here, help them understand how does the average car owner out there actually verify whether their vehicle is E20 compliant or not. My gas tank clearly says with a big red sign, no E20. And it seems like I'm heading the way where I'll have to cough up extra money to put in, pure gasoline. But not many know or understand whether that's the truth. And this thick a manual, I mean, who's got the time to go through those, tiny printed words in all of those manuals?
You've made a very, very valid point. Till now, most of the people, the way that we can tell whether our cars are E5, E10, E20 compliant is if we open the petrol filling area, and it says over there, like with stickers, whether or not your car is compliant with E20 or not. But that's not enough. One of the major things, and I think that this consumer commission hearing, one of the major things that it's going to maybe achieve for us as consumers is that we need a proper data set. Every single, when you go on to carwale.com or you go on to any single website, you compare features of the car. I can tell which car of Maruti has a 1.5 liter engine, which has a 1 liter engine, which one is hybrid, which one is petrol. Now, I also need to start understanding which model is E20 compliant and which model is not E20 compliant. Because if I am a car buyer in 2026 going to the dealership to buy a car, as per what I have been told by the government, is that every car manufactured 2023 onwards, a particular month within 2023, I think it's around March or June, somewhere around the first or second quarter of 2023, all the cars need to be 2023 compliant. Now, that's actually one of the reasons why this particular Raipur customer even came out with an advantage in this particular case.
Yeah, because he says that my car wasn't E20 compliant, and Maruti Suzuki says that yes, your car was E20 compliant. Then why didn't you say so in the court in the first place? Which is, I mean, that's absolutely funny. Please complete your thoughts. My apologies.
And in fact, I think that Raipur customer ended up buying his car either in 2024 or 2025. They sold him a car which was manufactured 18 months before when he bought it. Now, at that point in time, it is absolutely mandatory, in my opinion, and for the benefit of all consumers, that the dealer needs to come to you and give you a warning. Hey, I can understand the consumer probably got a very good discount for buying a car which was manufactured 18 months ago. As a consumer, people would prioritize that discount, but it's the job of the salesperson, it's the job of the brand, it's the job of the dealership to tell that consumer, hey, while you're taking this discount, which he might have, might not have, I'm not sure. But let's say you're going with this 18-month-old car. Let me tell you right now, it is not E20 compliant.
But is that so, Rohit? Because, I mean, you see, according to the court order, 20 lakh rupees refund, including RTO and insurance. I mean, how much is going to be RTO and insurance? About 2 lakh rupees. So 18 lakh rupees worth of car. What kind of discount are we talking here? It's clearly that, this was an unfair trade practice, which is what the consumer court also pointed out. But, very quickly, before I go across to, Professor Misra, how does the common man out there know? There is no way, right? Whether you can find out if your car is E20 compliant or not. You'll have to go through these websites that you're talking about. You'll probably, if you don't have that sticker on the gas casket, then you don't even know.
There's no proper confirmed way, which is why we need data sets and we need proper releases. And just like how they tell us every single feature of the car, they need to start telling us explicitly whether or not this car is compliant with E20.
Yeah.
And if the government eventually plans to start bringing in E25, E30, E35, Indian brands and other global brands need to start becoming more proactive and tell us that our cars in the future will also be compliant with an E30 or an E35. And if they're not compliant right now, we're manufacturing cars that will be compliant. Because see, the government has already taken its stance. They're not going to be stopping with the ethanol push. They are currently saying that they are pausing further blends of ethanol beyond 20%. But we know that E20 is here to stay. And more importantly,
nobody, and I think it was you who said it last time as well. There was another auto expert, from Steerlock. Both of you, I remember categorically saying that there is no problem with E20. Even Tehseen, who was with us last time around, he said there's no problem with E20. We know that is the road ahead, but the rollout, the approach needs to be a little more scientific. It needs to be a little more sensitive towards the common man out there. Absolutely. Professor, you see, the court has now, coming back to this court, and, I just want to understand whether this now raises the legal bar for companies, for auto manufacturers to clearly disclose E20 compatibility at the time of the sale. If, like Rohit is saying, E20 is here to stay, then we need to know whether our cars are compatible or not. Even if you're buying a car, let's say next year, and that's not compatible, it's the onus and it's incumbent on the car manufacturer to tell us what you're actually buying.
Yeah, Kabir, first let me answer one of your questions, which was their process. Yes, there is a protocol, there is an SOP where you can record and take a consent of the consumer that he has been fully made aware about the features of the vehicle at the time of sale. If you do that and officially take a consent from the consumer, then naturally the manufacturer is duly doing due diligence in terms of the sale and not adopting unfair trade practice by hiding facts and figures. So there is a method where on video or audio, you can take the consent of the consumer, even in writing, in terms of the features, well explained, consumer also accepting, yes, I have been explained properly. That's number one. Number two, you see, what you need to understand is that the fuel, today in our country, we have been suffering for many, many years in terms of the purity of the fuel which we put into our vehicle. There has been a lot of cases which has revealed that the fuel which gets into our vehicle is not the fuel which we are paying for. So there has to be a very strong kind of an action taken to ensure that the quality of the fuel remains the same, which is pumped into my vehicle before it is collected. Because I heard from my panel member Rohit that certain things happen at that tank. Now that is not the responsibility of the consumer. That's the responsibility of the oil company to ensure that the tanks are well insulated, they are not adulterated, the water doesn't get seeped in. And these are the issues which needs to be resolved when the government is rolling out. So what I find is they get to a place where they roll out, but they don't look at the challenges which we are already facing as consumers in terms of the quality of the fuel which we are being made to buy.
The fuel comes to the petrol pumps first, then the policy comes, and then finally the car comes at the fuel pump. This is the situation that we're dealing with right now. And it's quite ironic. It's absolutely ironic. And this Raipur verdict, it's just one consumer court order that has come out today. But this...
No, but it has made, Kabir, it has settled a lot of tenements of law.
Yes, absolutely.
It has given us the rights now. Now all the automobile manufacturers have to wake up and ensure that they educate.
And it's high time. It's high time, Professor. It's high time we do that. We're talking about a nationwide rollout. These are the simplest of things. This has to be done. I mean, there is no way.
Oil companies has to ensure that the fuel which is getting into my vehicle is as per standard.
Yeah, and the car manufacturers have to tell us what kind of compatibility our car can sustain. All right, then it has certainly opened up a much larger national conversation. And as we push ahead with this E20 roadmap, both my panelists have said it's here to stay. Motorists are going to be demanding greater transparency. Whether this judgment stands or is challenged, Maruti has a lot of money. There is no doubt about that. One
That's
thing
my
is certain,
money. That's my money. That's not Maruti's money. He's using my money to fight against me.
Yeah, actually, exactly. That too. The debate over E20 has now moved from the fuel pump, from the roads to the courtroom. Whether this becomes a legal precedent or not, well, only time will tell. But it's important that we continue talking about this. Thanks to both my guests for joining us here. Rohit, many thanks for taking out the time. And Professor Misra, always a pleasure to have you here on News9. All right, then, we're going to slip into our second segment seamlessly because next up, we're turning our focus to a case that's unfolding in the United Kingdom. We were all waiting for, a verdict to come in this particular case, but it hasn't really come. It is a case that has resonated with Hindus, not just in the United Kingdom, but across the world. And at the center of this legal battle is the 40-year-old Bharat Hindu Samaj temple in Peterborough. Now, this temple was founded by the Hindu families who fled Uganda in the 1970s. This temple today serves nearly 18,000 devotees. It's more than just a place of worship. It's a community center, a cultural hub, and for many families across the region, the only Hindu temple within a 50 to 60 kilometer radius. So, what has triggered this dispute essentially? Where Peterborough City Council decided to sell the complex that houses this temple, and the successful bidder was the United Kingdom Islamic Mission. So it's a proper Hindu versus Muslim debate that's now coming out, which plans to redevelop this site into a mosque and Islamic community center. The Hindu Temple Trust has now challenged that decision before the UK High Court, and the council says that the sale was driven by financial necessity. Facing a debt burden, it began selling surplus public assets. The Labour Party is also involved in this. And the temple complex was put on the market. The UK Islamic Mission submitted the highest bid. And the council says it simply accepted the best financial offer on the table. But the Temple Trust argues that this case is not just about the highest bidder. The trust says due process was not followed, that the Hindu community was not adequately consulted, and that the council failed to properly consider its obligations under the UK's Equality Act before taking the decision. The council rejects those allegations and maintains that the sale was lawful. So the High Court is now not essentially deciding whether a temple should make way for a mosque or not. It's deciding whether the process adopted by the council was fair, was it lawful and consistent with its obligations towards a long-standing community institution. The hearing, it's underway. The verdict is still being awaited. But whichever way it goes, the case could have implications